Hello ladies and gentlemen, my name is RuffledRowlit and welcome to a brand new video. Today guys, we're going to be taking a look at the top 5 worst mythical Pokemon. Now I'm going to make sure to point something out. Mythical Pokemon and legendary Pokemon are two different things. I just want people to understand that there are two different separations here. Like, you would be surprised, but Pokemon like Arceus fall into the mythical category, and Mew also falls into the mythical category, while something like Mewtwo falls into the legendary category. It's really weird how these are categorized, but that's essentially what it is like, so keep that in mind. And please do keep in mind, this list is based off of these Pokemon in the sense of their usage. Not all of this stuff is going to be about their designs, because a lot of the Pokemon on this list are Pokemon I actually like quite a lot. These are Pokemon that I think are good, and Pokemon I like, you know, having in my teams, even if they aren't too good in terms of stats. And that's what we're going to be basing this video off of the most, which is going to be statistics. How did these Pokemon fare against others in their respective tiers? So keep that in mind, and let's get right into this countdown video. So kicking off the list is going to be number 5, which is Celebi. Now, I have to be saying this, that putting Celebi on this list kind of hurts me, as Celebi is a Pokemon I am very fond of. I grew up alongside this Pokemon and witnessed its glory in the early Pokemon movies, but when it comes down to it, Celebi is not a very strong or reliable Pokemon. Celebi falls flat in terms of stats, and it's not really a Pokemon to have alongside you in terms of just using it against others. Its base stat is nothing to brag about, and its biggest issue is the fact that it struggles against several common types in its competitive area, which is the UU tier, and it has a hard time just against other Pokemon. And that's also another fact, it's in the UU tier, which means it's underused. It's not a Pokemon that you see too often, and it struggles against the most common Pokemon within its own tier, so that makes it really hard for it to actually shine. And over time, it feels as Celebi has kind of started to fade out compared to the newer Pokemon we've seen, and in terms of popularity, I feel like Celebi is a Pokemon that's kind of lacking lately. But overall, I would say it's still a Pokemon that I love, but due to the fact that it struggles in competitive and its usefulness is not too good, and being currently in UU tier, it doesn't feel like it's going to be going anywhere anytime soon. But let's just hope that the future brings something brighter to Celebi, as it is a Pokemon I think deserves more praise and deserves to be on a higher, you know, spot in terms of listings and stuff like that, and also maybe should, you know, be upped a bit in terms of competitive and maybe just do some changes to it. But then again, that's where it falls into, and let's go to the next one on the list. And coming at the number 4 spot is going to be Meloetta. Now, Meloetta, which I personally find to be a very underwhelming Pokemon, does fall into the number 4 spot because of the fact that it also doesn't really have much to it. Now, other than the fact that I feel like it's a very underwhelming Pokemon in the sense that it doesn't actually, for me personally, it doesn't strike a chord. I don't have the same past as I had with Celebi compared to Meloetta. Like, I don't have the same kind of connection to it, and that's also why I find it to be kind of forgettable. Though it did have a very cool design. I'm gonna make sure to point that out. It did have a very cool design, having the whole like music aspect to it, which I think is awesome. But other than that, it's a very forgettable Pokemon. Now, the thing that gave Meloetta a bit of a stride was its normal typing mixed with the psychic typing that it was rolling. Unfortunately, that did not help it because of the fact that its defensive capabilities in the tier NU tier that was inside of basically made it so it could easily be destroyed by physical attackers, and its speed was nothing crazy, nothing interesting, and overall it's a Pokemon that kind of lacks in stats, but does definitely look cool though. And I feel like over time it's a Pokemon that will be slowly forgotten more and more as you see it less and less, and that's why it falls into this spot on this list. Now again, keep in mind that these lists, and this list specifically, is based off these Pokemon's in their usage and when you use them in competitive and that sort of stuff, and also in the sense of how actually like cool are they compared to some of the other ones. Because remember, something like Darkrai is actually a really cool Pokemon, but it's also a very useful Pokemon, and you know, that sort of stuff. But either way, let's go to the next one on the list. Now, next on the list is going to be Hoopa, and I have to say that Hoopa is a very unique Pokemon. Now, being based on a genie, it is truly interesting and a pretty darn awesome Pokemon, but base Hoopa is not very strong of a contender in terms of battling. It's a very weak Pokemon, so keep in mind I'm mainly going to focus on base Hoopa here and not the unbound form of Hoopa, so I'm going for just the base form. So for base form Hoopa, or I'm not sure what the exact name is for it, I have to say it gets totally destroyed, like just demolished by Dark and Ghost types, which it has a ×4 weakness against. So if you get something like a Sucker Punch or Pursuit onto your Hoopa, it is just destroyed, and it just is not going to survive easily in that sort of tier. You won't be seeing too much of Hoopa in that area because of that fact that it does fall flat against those sort of Pokemon, and considering it is in the RU, which is the tier it's inside of. Now I have to point out the fact that it is an RU already puts it behind a lot of the other Pokemon that are like, if you just look at mythical Pokemon as a list, out of all the Pokemon on that list, you know, falling into an RU tier means you're gonna be generally a lesser Pokemon than the other ones. But I'm not saying Hoopa is overall bad. Hoopa is still a decent Pokemon to use. It's nothing wrong with it. But of course you want to go for Hoopa Unbound, which we're not counting here because we're only looking at normal Hoopa. Though the fact that it has that ×4 weakness against Ghost and Dark types, it really struggles. But other than that, it actually does have a pretty, actually has the highest special attack of any other Pokemon in the RU tier. But because of that weakness to Dark and Ghost types, it really is a Pokemon you can replace with something else, and it has a tough competition against other Pokemon that can do its job for it, which may be better, so that's why it falls in here. But I've got to say, Hoopa is a Pokemon that can easily be replaced in its own tier, and it falls behind as a mythical Pokemon, because keep in mind, it is a mythical Pokemon, so that's why Hoopa, the base form, should never really be used. But if you go for Hoopa Unbound, it's a way better choice. Hoopa Unbound is way stronger, so that's probably the better one to go with, but just base form Hoopa is not that strong, and that's why it's on this list. Now let's go to the next one on this list. Now, next up on the list is going to be Shaman, which falls into the RU tier, and I have to say, Shaman is not a bad Pokemon in terms of design. It is an interesting and fun Pokemon, but its base Shaman form, it does end up being pretty useful in RU, but then again, it's still in RU, which is rarely used, which means it is a lesser Pokemon in that sense. Though when it is in that tier, it does have a pretty decent moveset or move pool that you can use, and a lot of great moves such as Synthesis and Leech Seed, and stuff like Earth Power and Dazzling Gleam, which are pretty useful moves. But if you're actually putting Shaman into a different tier, it would struggle. It wouldn't be actually possible to use it, as it is a Pokemon that falls behind, and it isn't really that useful. And that's also why it ends up being on this list, and why it is in the RU tier, because it's not a strong Pokemon. Its stats are weak, and it falls behind a lot compared to other mythical Pokemon. It is all around a poor performance Pokemon, and it doesn't end up high in terms of stats, and really falls behind, which is why it's on this list. I personally love Shaman. I think it's a cool Pokemon, and the Shaman Sky form or whatever, that one is actually really good in the terms of, my opinion, design, and I think it's cool. But then again, base form Shaman is actually not that strong. It's very weak, not that useful, don't see it too often, and if you do see it, it's not really the best of Pokemon to use, though it does have a decent moveset and move pool. It is not too bad, to be honest. Like, its move pool is decent, like, genuinely it is decent, but it doesn't actually put it like any higher. It ends up falling behind a lot of other mythical Pokemon, which, remember, we're putting this in the terms of like which is better in terms of mythical Pokemon, which this is the list of the worst ones, and Shaman falls behind compared to all the other ones. So keep that in mind as you're watching this video, just so you understand what I mean, because you may misunderstand when I say it's bad in that sense, because I'm listing it compared to other Pokemon within its own area, which is mythical Pokemon specifically. So that's why it falls behind. As a Pokemon overall, though, it's not that bad. I mean, it's not the best, but it's not the worst either, so it's kind of in between, you know what I mean? But either way, let's go to the next one on the list, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, and to the number one spot, this goes to Fiona, and I feel like it's kind of obvious. Fiona is forgettable, boring, not interesting, and it is horrible in terms of stats and move pool. Like, this Pokemon is a water type and has no secondary typing, and compared to all the other Pokemon on this list, it just falls flat overall. Fiona is PU, which means it's pretty much never used, and it's a mediocre Pokemon that has bad stats and has nothing to brag about. Fiona is useless in battle, and it overall just has nothing to it that makes it into a good Pokemon. The only thing that you can do with this thing is actually set up Rain, if that's what you want to do, and you can keep it alive for a little bit if you use like certain moves. Like, there is a way to keep this thing alive and keep it around to just reset up Rain, but overall there's really no usage. That's what it is in the PU tier. It is overall just a bad Pokemon, and it's just horrible compared to all the other ones, and it's definitely the worst mythical Pokemon. It is bad. Actually, not evolving it from Manaphy actually makes it slightly more, or actually if you had it as its pre-evolution or whatever, or pre-form, you actually have a better chance with it than when turning it into Fiona. Like, it's just so weird. But overall, this is the worst Pokemon out of all the other mythical ones. It falls flat, it falls behind, it is not that useful, it is a bad Pokemon all around, and that's why it's on this list. So that's going to be that one, lads. I hope you all enjoyed this video. If you did, then make sure to drop a like down below and let me know in the comment section down below what do you think about the list. If there's anything you think I missed, let me know in the comment section down below. And I think that's going to be the end of the video. Now, I want to thank everybody for watching this. Like, thank you so much, and for all the support. Make sure to subscribe if you are new. Follow me on Twitter if you want to keep up with new stuff that's happening in the Pokemon community. And also make sure to drop a like. As I said earlier, it really helps out and it'll be really appreciated. And I'll see you all the next time. Have a great day, and I'll see you next time, Pokemon trainers. Bye bye.